Cari amici, amiche, abbonati, avventori occasionali di questo canale, abbiamo una stupenda sorpresa per voi. Come vedete, qui sotto di me c'è uno dei più grandi maestri del giornalismo internazionale, mondiale, Bill Emmott, che è stato direttore dell'Economist e anche chi non legge la stampa internazionale, la stampa anglosassone con regolarità, ricorderà la sua famosa copertina su Berlusconi, no? Di cui ancora si parla qui in Italia, unfit to govern, e quindi diciamo così è una persona che ha cuore l'Italia, si è occupata molto anche di problemi italiani, parla abbastanza bene l'italiano, ma questa puntata sarà in inglese, quindi se qualcuno vuole poi avere succola il riassunto di quello che diciamo, faremo anche magari una traduzione dei transcripts, si dice. Ok, adesso passiamo all'inglese. Mi raccomando, iscrivetevi al canale, mettete un like se vi piace quello che ascoltate su questo canale. I commenti sono sempre ben accetti. Se ci aiutate a diffondere questi contenuti anche attraverso i vostri profili social, la cosa ci farà immenso piacere. Allora, Bill, we would like to talk about an interview you recently gave to an Italian newspaper about Techno-Fascism. Okay, can you explain exactly what you mean and why we should be all concerned about this phenomenon?
Well, first of all, Fabio, thank you so much for having me on this show with you and Alberto. And it's a great honor. And thank you also for being tolerant of il mio italiano abbastanza primitivo. And I thank you very much for allowing me to speak English, because it would be good for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, my Italian, but not for a proper conversation. As far as techno-fascism was concerned, this really was the phrase of Ezio Mauro, writing in La Repubblica, which then La Repubblica telephoned me about. And what do you think? Because I'd been writing about Trump and Musk in La Stampa, their sister newspaper. And in my view, we need to make a clear distinction between like the techno part. The techno was the use of technology to influence opinion and the power of technology in the hands of certain people. And then like the fascism part, which is the ideology that some people have in using that technology. Because I think that these are not the same things yet. Maybe it will change. We could ask ourselves, is Elon Musk actually a techno-fascist? I think he is definitely using his technology to achieve the goals he wants to do, including getting even richer, and to direct and influence elections around the world and interfere with governments in what you could call an imperialistic way. And he is an immigrant to America, a South African immigrant to America, and yet he is not concerning himself just with what's going on in America. He is not America first, like Trump. He is imperialistic. He's trying to influence the German elections. He's trying to remove the British Prime Minister from his job. He's trying to influence all sorts of people around the world. But what is he really trying to achieve? I think that he is authoritarian about certain aspects to do with racial politics, to do with immigrants, and to do with particularly Muslims. But really, his ideology is libertarian. He wants ultra-free speech. He wants deregulation. He wants, of course, deregulation of his businesses, but he also believes in a deregulatory government, which way makes me laugh when he and others claim that he is closely aligned with the Meloni administration in your country, in Italy, because the Meloni government stands for many things, but deregulation is not among them. This is not a libertarian government either. It is not, in fact, in favor of ultra-free speech. It uses lawsuits to intimidate journalists and to try to influence speech. So, what is the connection between Meloni and Musk? Maybe we don't yet know, and maybe Musk doesn't yet know, but I think you will discover that actually they have very different ideologies. So this is a long way of saying that I think that we are in the early stages of the use of technology to influence politics, and it is being used for many different purposes by different holders of the power of technology. And we do need to worry about how they are using that technology and how other parties, how other forces in our democracies can respond.
Bill, this is a wonderful introduction, and we have had one of our videos focusing on the relationship between Meloni, Trump, and the differences in ideology, because Musk looks more intrigued by Javier Milei than than being aligned with Meloni's economic policy, which looks much more Peronist than libertarian. But besides that, Musk enjoys some substances as well, and which Meloni would not be too keen on, and he is, a fan of how you call it in English, this in Italian is gestazione surrogata. In other words, he had
yes, surrogate mothers. Yes, surrogate pregnant.
mothers.
Yes.
And so Meloni is dead set against this practice. So, but beyond this, I think that the issue, the first time people realized what kind of power social media might have was with Brexit and Cambridge Analytica.
Yes.
Which targeted certain groups of voters and raised fears about immigration, decline, ethnic substitution, and so on and so forth. Have we learned anything since 2016, in your view?
I think we have learned since 2016 of the power of social media and of particularly power of technology to target people in this way, number one. Secondly, we've learned that the big challenge is that thanks to the fragmentation of the media, which is not just social media, but all kind of digital media, actually groups and individual people live somewhat in their own information world. The early ideas of the internet, that this was free information for everyone, that somehow you had a universal kind of open information world, has led, of course, to a big availability of wide information, but also to people being able to live in the world that they want to live in and listen to the media that they want to and not hear anything else. So it means that the power of targeting, the power of finding people in their unique media environment, whether it's through TikTok or X or Facebook, doesn't matter, it's different methods, is shown to be very, very influential. So what we've learned, number three, is that many politicians and activists seek to emulate this success of Oxford Analytica and the Brexit campaign. And they come from many different directions, those who try to use it. I live in Ireland. The Prime Minister of Ireland, the Irish word for his name is, for his post, is the Taoiseach, and he is, the current Prime Minister is known as the TikTok Taoiseach, because he has tried to use TikTok videos as his way of targeting messages in a very energetic way to the public. But there are many examples in every country of this. So I think we have learned how to respond to this opportunity and challenge, but we have not worked out how to control it in any sense, by which I mean, even if I am running for office and I can take advice on how to try to exploit this does not mean that my information is going to be accurate or truthful or sound. I think we haven't found really a settled way to try to maintain the quality of the information, even while we have a very wide range of information available to people, and therefore range of persuasion available to people. And I suppose the final thing we learned from the Romanian presidential election is that one influence of social media, again in that case TikTok, was that well used, this kind of communication can influence people very quickly, can produce sudden changes in public opinion, which was the case in the Romanian presidential election, because they are bombarded with communications, and because they are not paying attention to other communications, such as from public broadcasters or daily newspapers. So I think we have learned good things about the situation, but also the power of the situation that we're in.
Yeah, but Bill, in Italy, we have witnessed something even more sinister, because the very first politicians to use these techniques were the so-called grillini, the
Right.
five-star movement in Italy. So Casaleggio was the tech guru of this movement, which then became the largest political party in Italy, with more than a third of the electoral consensus. He was an expert in those kind of manipulation
Yes.
techniques. And another one who resorted heavily for at least a certain period to persuasion, propaganda on social media was Salvini. He had this organization which was commonly called La Bestia, the beast, uh, which was intended to convey certain messages through social media, Twitter in particular, and bot farms and other, let's call them tricks, to for lack of better terms. So Italy has been one of the most successful from the point of view of the manipulator, one of the most successful example of this kind of techno-fascism. But let me share with you my analysis. I think that the problem originates from section 230 of the Federal Communication and Decency Act of the United States, which is a regulation issued in the 90s, early 90s, no? At the very, let's say, at the very start of the internet, when internet,
Yes.
evolved from, a network of academics sharing emails to the World Wide Web. This section grants to social media a privilege. It was conceived for internet provider. So an internet provider, I don't know, Vodafone or America Online, is not responsible of the content its clients write on internet, right? So if I send a mail to blackmail somebody, the internet provider is not responsible. So, because otherwise the internet provider must check everything, every activity each one of its clients does on internet. This privilege was extended to social media. So they were deemed to be neutral platforms. But they are not, for two reasons. First of all, because they do check the content. Sometimes they erase what they don't like. They suspend users that behave not in accordance with the community rules, very vaguely defined. And moreover, they have algorithms that manipulate how the content is spread. So, for example, if you pay, your post tends to be more visible. Otherwise, your content is not so visible, not even to your friends, say, on Facebook. Or the algorithm can give priority to certain themes, to certain issues, and obscure, have the content that the algorithm doesn't like somehow hidden. Okay, so unlike internet providers, social media do check the activity on by users, and they can influence how they interact. So they cannot be deemed, they cannot be considered like the internet providers. So this is the first issue that must be dealt with. The second issue is anonymous profile. Anonymity gives, certain actors the possibility to set up these bot farms. So yes, thousands of fake users that then can, manipulate, regurgitate, spread misinformation, messages, propaganda, whatever. Now, the combination of these two things has created a legal vacuum, because if somebody writes on a newspaper, Mr. X is a criminal, and Mr. X is not a criminal, Mr. X can take whoever has written the lie to court. Why? Because the newspaper must indicate who is the author of the article, and the director, the editor of the newspaper has a legal obligation to make sure that this kind of misinformation is not published. So they are responsible social media are not responsible. So they say, oh, Section 230 grants me this neutral status. So whatever is written, I'm not responsible, but I can check what is written and erase what I don't like or promote what I like. Second, if somebody uses the social media to threaten somebody, to do, I don't know, terroristic activity and blah, 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 protected by the anonymity, there is no way you can hold these people, these malignant agents, responsible. So, in other words, one antidote to this techno-fascism would be either to prohibit anonymous profile, or in some way, even if somebody wants to call himself a Mickey Mouse 270, if Mickey Mouse 270 commits some kind of crime through social, meaning the police or the whoever is being damaged, must have all the tools to know who is behind Mickey Mouse 270. If the social medium does not provide that information, they must be responsible for what Mickey Mouse 270 has written. What do you think on this?
Well, I think that you're absolutely right that the big difference between these media platforms and the traditional media, and really, in fact, also other digital media, because if in the Italian context, l'inchiesta publishes only online, or the equivalents in the US or UK, they are subject to the law in the same way as is the Washington Post or the Economist or La Repubblica. So it's really the social media platforms that have this privilege, and I agree that it does produce a huge problem and a huge opportunity. Now, what we are seeing right now is that the do you want to stop for a minute to wait?
No. Go ahead. Don't worry.
Okay, you can edit. Okay. So what we are seeing now is that the limited controls that were put in place in the United States, which involved some obligation to have content moderation, to have some fact-checking services, which were in a way more moral persuasion on particularly Meta, Facebook, compared with legal ones, that they are now being dismantled because of the new Trump administration. This week, Mark Zuckerberg announced that he was dismissing all his fact checkers and moving the content moderation function away from California and to a different state because of problems, as he saw it, of political bias, which means he says, I'm embracing free speech, which means that I'm embracing my apparent neutrality. So in America, these social platforms will have even less obligation than before to publish or to verify what they are publishing, and at the same time, in American politics, there has been a move on the conservative side of the Republican Party to try to attack what they call the censorship industrial complex, namely everyone who wishes to try to expose disinformation, even do research about disinformation, but especially certain organizations that have tried to help advertisers send their advertising towards safer locations, safer publications or sites, compared with ones where there's a lot of hate speech or disinformation. So America, it's going to be dismantled under the Trump administration during the Trump-Musk administration, if we should call it that. So what we will have then is a complete difference between America and the Digital Services Act in the European Union and the obligations that the Digital Services Act and its equivalent in the UK, outside the EU, obviously, are seeking to put onto the social media platforms to do an even stronger version of what Mark Zuckerberg has announced he is abandoning in the US. So we're going to see a transatlantic tussle about this. There are some who think that Musk will persuade Trump to make tariff threats against the European Union unless the European Union abandons the Digital Services Act. I think that that's unlikely to succeed, but nonetheless, we could see this issue being elevated to the issue of grand transatlantic relations, if you like. But you will have a very big difference between the environments. And I do think that a fundamental requirement that we should see to try to discourage techno-fascism, as you're calling it, is regulations to oblige sites and advertisers to work with like risk rating agencies that allow advertisers to have some knowledge about where their advertising is going and what is the risk of where they are placing it. Because one of the big changes in the media that's come with digital advertising, the switch to digital advertising, is that whereas in the past, an advertiser who wanted to advertise in, let's say, The Economist, they could telephone The Economist and say, you can put my advert anywhere except next to an article by Bill Emmott. Mm-hmm. His article will be unsafe for my brand. I do not want it there, but you can put it anywhere else. Or choose in another way. Don't put it next to an article about a war going on in the Middle East. Put it somewhere else. So you could allocate it. In today's world, digital advertising is allocated by algorithms through particularly Google and Meta and Microsoft as well and others that then advertisers lose control over where they can go, which also means that they are reluctant to fund advertising that goes into news, which then takes even more money away from quality, reliable news journalism. And I do think that it's important that that in Europe, where we can, that we seek to make possible the establishment of that kind of risk rating services, which is in a way the equivalent of credit rating agencies, but that companies, entities that will evaluate on behalf of advertising agencies and on behalf of advertisers, what are the risks of disinformation? What are the risks of hate speech? What are the risks of kind of like negative, hostile language there, and give then the advertisers at least a tool to make their choice. And that then would help to allocate funding more towards safer places and less towards hostile places. It doesn't prevent political misuse of these things, because politicians, political forces who have money can do whatever they like in a way. But it can help to fund better journalism, better information services, more than bad ones. And I think that's going to be an important development that we'll have to see whether it can be done by the European Union and by the European Commission. But I think that it could be pretty important. I think it's worth adding that neutrality is something that social media platforms claim they want. But let's look at one that was set up by the new president of the United States. His social media platform, he named it Truth Social. So he made a claim in the name of his own platform, which is definitely not neutral. He thinks he is a commander of the truth. And that tells you the lie that stands behind much of these claims by social media platforms. Maybe it's more true for Facebook than it is for X or Truth Social, but still, it's essentially a lie.
No, but I mean, I can give you an example of what happened to me and Alberto actually, on Facebook. We wrote a post on the celebrating the 10th anniversary of the euro. Okay, Facebook took it off because it was deemed to be electoral propaganda. Now,
No,
there were no elections.
Mm.
The euro is not a party. But this tells you, no, this example tells you that the algorithm is not even trustworthy, but might have, might generate effects that are counterintuitive, let's say so. No, let's use
yes, exactly. That's a great example. I mean, a terrible example, but a great example of what can happen. I mean, if you are considered to be political party activists, that's
no,
terrible.
but besides, even if I were, there were no elections at the time.
No,
So
no,
you can say, what? How in the world can anything I write be electoral propaganda if there are no elections inside?
no, exactly. So this is
Alberto, I want to bring you into the conversation. What are your
Worried. I'm very worried because I see nothing that can stop this trend. I see nothing emerging that can give me confidence this trend can be.
no.
I don't.
I think you're right, Alberto. I think that we have to accept that it's the way the rivers are flowing, and we can only try to influence their movement. We can't stop the flow of the water, if you like, to use that analogy. I think this is the digital world that we are now, for the foreseeable future, going to inhabit. But we can make attempts, rather as you try to direct a river to stop it flooding Firenze. You can try to control the Arno. You can try to direct the water to a certain extent, and that's the best you can try to do.
Yeah, but Bill, this psychologically, what is in the mind of these people who think they can shape the truth? Who
Well,
are they? I don't think even Mussolini was like that.
no, I think you're right, and I think we should probably acknowledge that what's in their mind are some different motivations. Um, I don't think that Mark Zuckerberg thinks he can shape the truth, but I think that he thinks that he maximizes his profits by having a lot of emotional propaganda and by making his services available, targeting services available to anyone who will pay for them. On the other hand, I think that Trump thinks he can try to shape the truth through Trump Social, and I think Elon Musk thinks he can shape the truth. So we've got different motivations. I think Musk does probably think he can have a real impact on the truth through his 200 million followers, through the way in which he can magnify certain ideas. But I think that we're engaged in a battle to see whether this is true or not, and whether he can really do that. Do you think that he is unstoppable? The question is whether or not there are competing sources of truth.
Give me one example of a possible
remedy,
counter medicine.
countermeasure?
The governments are very weak. These groups have tremendous lobbying power. They can shape the political fortune of almost everybody. Who can take them on?
Each other.
Each other.
That's almost the only answer, I think, in term that I know of, really. I think that governments can do some things to impose some regulations. I think the Digital Services Act has some useful powers that need to be implemented. But fundamentally, the only real tool we will have is open competition and pluralism between these different forces. And our challenge is ensuring that there is competition for ideas and is competition for reaching people through these tech platforms. One of the contradictions within the MAGA people in America is that some of them, including J.D. Vance, the vice president, want stronger antitrust action over the tech companies because he thinks that they're too powerful and they're abusing their market position. Obviously, Elon Musk does not want that, and neither does Mark Zuckerberg. And you've got a kind of libertarian versus actually a kind of Theodore Roosevelt type movement, which says actually what we need is a new Sherman Antitrust Act to try to break up some of these monopolies and ensure open competition. So that's the most powerful thing I can think of, really, that what we can hope to encourage and facilitate is a competition of ideas, even between manipulators.
You see,
I know. X going its way. Facebook goes along. TikTok doesn't really stands in the way. Who else is there?
LinkedIn.
Instagram have the same owner.
Well, the difference with, I mean, the one question with all of these channels is that actually most of them do not have a mind of their own. TikTok does not have a policy towards how it shapes things. People use TikTok. So the Russians use TikTok. The Prime Minister of Ireland uses TikTok. People use these methods and they can compete in the use of these platforms. This is not like three powerful individuals facing up against each other running with TikTok, where that's partly Chinese owned, and obviously Facebook and X. X, of course, is the smaller of those channels. And by the way, I've just joined Blue Sky, the new channel that is meant to be trying to deal with this and to play a better role. And many of the people I find following me are actually people who want to send me pictures of their bare bodies, in other words. And I don't believe that they are genuine. I think they are bots too. These are anonymous accounts of people basically trying to sell their, shall we say, sexual services. So there's, I mean, this is the trouble with these social media accounts. But there's a powerful network effect, clearly, which is in a way what you're suggesting, Alberto, that actually once you get beyond a certain scale, it's hard to break in as a competitor with the platform. But the platform can be used by different people, is my only hope. And maybe what we have to make sure that legislation ensures is that these platforms are kept open for use by different people rather than becoming the tool of megalomaniac individuals.
I think that there are some remedies. For example, in terms of antitrust, why should Facebook be one global company? You can have a Facebook for Europe, one for the US, one for whatever else, because Facebook is for friends. Okay, so I deal mostly, when I write a post, the average user deals with his friends who are in Italy. The same way an American user wants the post be read by his American friends. If he has friends in Italy, he can have two profiles, one on Facebook US and one on Facebook Europe. So you can break down these companies. It's not true that it's impossible. Second, you can force them to comply with regulation, because TikTok in the US, as you know, risks being, you know, on what is January 19, risks to be banned all over the US. Third, you remember that Elon Musk at some point got into a diatribe, controversy with the Brazilian government,
Yes.
because the Brazilian judge wanted X to release certain information, and they first refused. At the end, Musk had to give up and to comply with the rules, with the request by the Brazilian judge. So at the end of the day, the power of the state, the power of the government can always break the resistance of private parties.
And this is an excellent, really important point, I think, Fabio, and which means that the really most dangerous thing is if these platforms capture the state.
Exactly.
And that's why Musk is so concerning, because of the potential of him capturing the American state. But he can't capture the European state. That, of course, is his motivation in trying to support the Alternative for Deutschland or other parties would be to weaken the European state. But I don't believe he's powerful enough to do that. But he could capture the American state, and thereby mean that in America, he's untouchable for at least 4 years. So that's in a way the worst worry is when state capture can happen by these powerful companies. And Google has been for years the biggest donator to political campaigns in Congress in the US, precisely for the reason that it wants to influence legislation about what its activities are.
Sure.
You see, there are other tools one can use, and these are legal tools. For example, I am taking Twitter to court because at some point they banned my profile for a tweet which was on this drug that the Novax claimed would cure COVID. No, so I said, well, if they want to use hydrochloroquine, I can't even remember what was it, but let them do it. I said, I wrote, and it was deemed. It was considered an invite for people to die, or you know, something that breached the community rules. So they banned me for life, and I took them to court. So if one can use the class action against the social media and hit them in their pockets where it hurts, or in their in their wallet where it hurts, that could be another tool, effective tool to restrain this misbehavior, or whatever you want to call it. And another area, for example, is in Italy, the criminal code punishes those who spread false information that might lead to riots or public unrest. It's an article of the criminal code that has almost never been used because judges are reluctant. No? But you know, if somebody says whatever, Zelensky is a Nazi, or Zelensky has, you know, pocketed the money received by the EU as humanitarian aid, and you can take whoever has written that to court, and the optimum would be to take to court the user who has written such a lie, and Twitter because it was the tool through which that lie has been spread. So I'm more confident because you see, until there were few voices raising concerns, the issue was, you know, rather unimportant. You know, it was just something that few people would care about. Now that that the problem is so blatantly evident, I think that a backlash or, you know, some sort of reaction will emerge, and that's why you know, this video would be useful to raise the awareness. And you know, the more we exert pressure and the more we make public opinion aware of the problem, the more effective this reaction will be.
Well, I certainly agree with that, Fabio. I think it's very important to raise awareness about this. And fundamentally, what we can do as publics is to try to make sure that the institutions of the state, of government, of the constitution, the rule of law, are maintained strong even through times when sometimes a party like the Five-Star Movement, Cinque Stelle, become the biggest party. Because, okay, they may use their methods to gain power, but then what can they do when they're in power? There must be the usual constraints on every government to be maintained to prevent them abusing that power. The big danger with Musk and Trump could be their ability to change the constitutional constraints in the US, but I think there is even limits to what they can do there. We can live with 3 or 4 years of Cinque Stelle in government, or Trump, or even Rassemblement National in France. The whole point of democracy is that we have alternation in government, and sometimes you do not like the party that's in power for a while. But the question is, can they then use their power to hang on to power for the long term, if you like, in the Mussolini type way, or a Putin type way, or Orban type way in Hungary? And that is the big danger that I think we have to fight against and to guard against, and make sure that the walls that are surrounding the conduct of each government in Europe, especially, are strong.
But there is this paradox, the Popper paradox, because if you give free speech to those who are against free speech and they win, speech will not be free anymore. So
True.
one has to be very careful on what free speech means. And because you can have an opinion about whatever, but
yes,
you can't spread falsehood in order to gain power and then use that power to silence everybody else.
no,
And I
exactly.
think that subtle or not so subtle distinction is not clear in most people's mind. They think that free speech must be absolute, unfettered, unrestrained, blah blah. And they don't understand that the danger of this attitude leads to authoritarianism, tyrannical government, and whatever else. So
no, I agree with you. That's the ultimate danger. I think that's absolutely right. Well done to you and to Alberto for fighting against it, and using the title "Inglorious Bastards." I can see that
Globastards,
global. Yes,
we
I
take
can see
pride
that
in
you're
being
pretty determined.
global.
Yes, exactly. Globastards is very good. Well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you both, and let's hope we can still be free to speak in the future.
I hope so.
Bill, many thanks for your kindness, and I'm sure our friends will appreciate your presence on our channel. And once again, please subscribe to Inglorious Globastards. Click on the like icon if you want us to be more visible to YouTube's algorithm. Thanks once again, Bill.
Bye.
All the best. Have a great evening.
All the best, Fabio. All the best, Alberto. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bill.